Now, let's move on to some issues of international nature because there's a people's revolution ongoing 200 kilometers away from Accra. That's less than the number of kilometers to my hometown, Takrady. But opposition leaders in Togo say the protest against the 50-year Nyasigbe administration could degenerate into a civil war as internet in the country and access to social media has been restricted. Now, 2 people died and 13 injured after similar protests in August. In spite of governments setting a presidential term limit, a fresh wave of protests started on Wednesday, both locally and outside the country. We have...
So this is actually the mood here at the Kalkudi Park in Accra. Some Togolese citizenry and some Ghanaians who are passionate about the matter have gathered here to call for the end of the tenure of President of Togo. Chairman for the group, Abdul Karim, says the president is simply incompetent.
Togo, one father, one son, almost 50 years. We can say if you don't follow your regulation, you can say you are corrupt. If you say something today and tomorrow you change it, you are corrupt. Maybe so. So we can see 1992 Constitution. Where are our 1992 Constitution today? If they are respecting the 1992 Constitution, we're supposed to forget about 4 today. Today, like we are talking about new presidents.
They shared their frustrations with economic hardship in Togo, which has forced them to relocate to Ghana. We are begging for Fore to step down. His father ruled for long. He's also ruled for so long. We Togolese are not fools. Look at how Ghana has improved. Though I was born in Ghana, I'm originally a Togolese. If anything should happen to my people back in Togo, we will chase Faure Nyasigbe out. If he fails to leave, we will show him that women can do worse things to get him out of power. One other protester criticized international community silence over the dictatorial regime in Togo.
We want Ghana to back the Togolese population. We want ECOWAS to back the Togolese population. As I was saying right now, we were only 2 countries in the ECOWAS region, Gambia and Togo, which the limitation of the presidency is not as such. So right now, His Excellency President Ambaro has done it. We want somebody else, the person who cares for the people, to rule Togo, so that the international community or the regional integration that we are talking about must go forward.
The protesting Togolese nationals spoke highly of the freedoms Ghanaians enjoy and wished to also have same.
Looking at the 50 years of, let's say, the management of Faure Nyasigbe, comparing even the past president of John Dramani Mahama, the government of former president Mahama, 4 years of John Dramani Mahama is even far better than 50 years of Faure Nyasigbe and his son Faure Nyasigbe. Yeah.
The protesters have vowed to continue with their series of protests until President Faure Nyasigbe relinquishes power.
Now, as you saw in that report by MFA Juadosi, Togolese here in Ghana have also joined the fray. In the studio with us to delve deeper into the concerns are Abdul Karim and Ridwan Seidu, leaders of the demonstration. Gentlemen, welcome. Now, Abdul, let me start with you. What motivated you to bring this demonstration to Ghana?
Thank you very much. I can say, you know, Togo is country, we can say that it's a revolution country for some times. But at us now, Togo, you don't know which country we can compare. We are talking about democracy, but Togo side is down. So now we are not talking about the constitution, the one we are crying for the last times. Now we are talking the end of 50 years rule. So.
Yeah, but why do you feel like, Eredwan, why do you feel like you have to demonstrate even outside Togo to make these concerns known?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you to the viewers. This has been stated by, and has been planned by the coalition of opposition leaders in Togo, that our cry for a long time has not been met. Nobody has, it looks like Togo becomes an island, and nobody talks about Togo anymore. And therefore, in every country in the world, wherever Togolese find yourself, should also demonstrate to at least, create an awareness to everybody in the world to understand the real situation on the ground in Togo. That's the reason why they decided that in every country, wherever Togolese find themselves, should also demonstrate.
Do you feel abandoned by Africa and the rest of the world?
Yes, of course. Yes, and that's the reason. It looks like nobody talks about Togo anymore. We know if Togolese accept democracy, as they say, it means that they've joined others in the world that believe in democracy. So if you believe in democracy, we should all go on the same page. We should all be on the same page. Ghana is in democracy. If Togo accept democracy, then it means that we should also do the same. Have the same development that we are having in Ghana. So those who live in Ghana are not different from other members of Togo in the world. And therefore, we should also play our part to also create awareness to the authorities in Ghana that they should also at least work on it.
So you want the authorities in Ghana to work on it, Abdul. Your government has agreed to set in a presidential term limit since these protests started. They say now a president can't serve more than 2 terms. Would you not say this is a step in the right direction?
Since 2005, I can say foreign Yasimbe starts ruling country on 2005. So it's supposed to limit at 2015. So that's 2 terms. But now we are still going to 2018. So it's overruling. And then they changed the constitution on 2002. So that time they are using their strong, they are using some
military
pressure,
might,
yes,
to enforce their reign. But Redwan, at least it's some would say it's an olive branch. It's a positive step. They are saying there's now a presidential term limit. Isn't it enough to go by now?
Yes. Who spoke about the presidential limits? There is a constitution that was cooked by the same government that coincide with the 1992 constitution that was written by the people themselves by way of referendum. If one party, a minority can go within some few hours and cook another one to go against this one, that one that is cooked in 2002, is to go into it and make sure they take out some articles so that you suit their wish. And therefore, like as we say, some articles like Article 59 in the Constitution of Togo, you have only 2 mandates to go. There's no way you go for the 3rd one. And they cooked and try to make it unlimited. So it goes against, that one went against the constitution written by the people themselves.
Okay.
And also, as the president wanted his son to inherit him, quickly took another one out of the constitution that says that you can not stand for presidency if you are under 45 years old.
Okay.
And they quickly went and made it 35. Because that foreign assembly was not even 40 years by then. So all these are reasons why Togolese are saying, no, let us go back and take 1992 constitution. So if you accept it today, it means automatically you must exit.
Okay. So what you are pushing for is an adoption of your original constitution.
Very good. The original constitution that we're talking about That's what my brother just said. We are no more there. We've passed that level.
Okay.
We are now at the level where we say the president must leave. The government must be exhausted because we don't need it anymore. Because demonstrations upon demonstrations since 1990, and they keep on killing their citizens. The one that happened just recently.
Yeah, in August.
Yeah, how can people who saw oath to protect their people, and they approved the demonstration, they give the permit for demonstration, then come out and firing the live bullet against their own people. That shows that you are not fit to be the leader for those people.
Now, speaking of violence that has come up in relation to these protests, yeah, saying that this is actually something that is being masterminded by the coalition of opposition in Togo. I heard one of the leaders, Pascaline Odonkor, mentioning how this could end up in civil war within Togo. Don't you think it is a dangerous thing for your citizens?
Thank you very much. When we're talking about civil war, who created civil war? The coalition always talks about pacifism. Everything they have to do is about pacifism. The demonstration is pacific, and therefore no violence. The teaching started for a long time, and everybody knows we have no intention to create any violence. And therefore, if the government, the authorities themselves, have to fire bullets, who is the responsible of violence? And therefore, if there's violence now, the government must be taking the responsibility. And therefore, we, Togolese, are peaceful and never want to see any blood anymore. So today, Togolese are standing on their feet, telling the government that you are no more fit to rule us, because when we go on demonstration that you approve yourselves, you fight live bullets on us. So the level we have reached now is no more 1992 constitution, but for the government to exit.
Will it be right to call you warmongers?
Never, never. Who wages war? And I'm saying that the permission, you know, the coalition asked the permit. You see, or the first one, there was the permit and it was approved by the government themselves.
To demonstrate?
To demonstrate. Why then should the government come back now and authorize the military to fire bullets and kill people? You understand? So we're still standing on pacifism. There's no way that Togolese will wage in war on the government. But the government continue. They started in 2005, this 2005. If you go to UN Security Council's file, you find it. 1,000 people were killed. You understand? Who killed them? Nobody. They've never, you know, mentioned anything in relation with what do you call that you brought people in to come and cause anything. But they themselves are those who are firing. They have guns, but the population have no gun.
Right. I'll come back to you to find out what your next step will be. But we've been joined on the phone by the Executive Director for West Africa Network for Peace Building, WANEP, Chukwuemeka Eze. Eze, thanks for your time. Now, would you say the situation in Togo has reached critical levels?
Well, I think it should have been worse, but I think for now, there are moves to begin to address the issues. The latest news we heard is that the government have called on the members of the parliament who are on recession to come back and amend some aspects of the Constitution. It's not clear to me whether those aspects of the Constitution are entirely all that the opposition wants to see to be addressed. But at least there is a move by the government to begin to look at the issues. Otherwise, if we had allowed the demonstration either from the government supporters or the opposition to go on, we would have feared for the worst.
Well, already we have some members of the opposition coalition in the studio telling us that they want an outright removal of the government and not just any constitutional amendment at all. Looking at this standoff, should the nation be preparing for the possibility of war?
Well, we can only plead for more dialogue, because at the end of the day, the citizens of Togo will suffer the effects of any of such violence that could ensue if the opposition are desperate in terms of removing the government. If there are grounds that the government should be removed, it has to follow constitutional means. Otherwise, we will advocate for dialogue if it means getting a third-party interlocutor, for example, the United Nations Office for West Africa, you know what, or other international organizations that could have leverage on both the opposition and the government to begin to address the issues. We will prefer that to the direction that the opposition might want to go.
Now, you are mentioning international organizations. What should be the role of the continental body in all this?
Yes, the African Union have a role to play. ECOWAS have a role to play. Coincidentally, the president of Togo happens to be the chair of the authority. But I think that peer pressure should also come into play. Ghana, for example, is bordering Togo. Nigeria is also there. Benin is also there. So we will begin to think that by now that the three countries very close to Togo should begin to make moves, because the impact of whatever might happen in Togo will not be a good one for the entire region.
Would it not be strategically wrong for some of these nations to involve themselves in an internal dispute?
Well, I wouldn't call it just an internal dispute, because the idea of the ECOWAS community, if you emphasize that word community, is that you are your brother's keeper and you're a good neighbor. So to that extent, preventive diplomacy within the ECOWAS protocol on ECOWAS conflict prevention framework is in order. Preventive diplomacy suggests that some kind of move should be made before even the conflict begins to escalate. So I do not see that as meddling with internal issues.
But this is the case where Mr. Foreign Asigbe, as you pointed out, is the head of the sub-regional body. Does it not raise any more difficulty for nations like Ghana? Yes, it does. The challenge is there, but it's more of a challenge to the ECOWAS Commission than it is to a neighbor like Ghana. And that's why we are saying that peer pressure and good neighborliness should play a role more than anything else. And to that extent, I do not see anything wrong with that. Being a good neighbor does not mean that you're taking over the mantle of leadership of the country. Because I think that Ghana has a stake, for example. If anything happens to Togo and people become refugees, their first preference would be to come to Ghana. And that also has security implications, as it were. So finally, sir, what would be your reaction if, say, in 2 weeks you've not heard anything at all from Ghana, for instance? It's not just about Ghana. I think it's about the rest of the ECOWAS member states. We need to try as much as possible to avert what might be a likely violence in Togo. That would be have a devastating effect, not just on Togo, but also on the region, especially at a period where we are experiencing lack of finances to be able to deal with any such violence when it occurs. So I think that the best time to have heard anything from the ECOWAS Commission and the rest of the ECOWAS member states yesterday, but the other good time is now. Okay. What are some of these effects that it could have on the financial community of West Africa? I do not think that ECOWAS can afford a robust peacekeeping mission today. So it is always cheaper to avert this kind of violence. A trip to Togo today by members of ECOWAS is in order, both at the level of the Commission, but also at the level of some of the heads of state. And I think that so long as the opposition and the party and the government is engaged, we will be able to avert this as quickly as possible. I think it's far more cheaper, it's far more better, it is more reassuring for both parties, and I think that's the way to go. Thank you very much, Chukwuemeka Eze. He's the Executive Director for the West African Network for Peace Building, WANEP. We'll soon be getting some updates on the situation on the ground in Togo. But let me come back to my guests in the studio. Abdul, what more do you have to add to this? What are your major concerns going forward?
Thank you very much. Now, we are just praying God You see, anything you want to do, you're supposed to call God first. And then even if somebody say he want to support you, if God will support you before somebody support you. Now we are just trying to call all around the world to see what is going to Togo, to just judge, to solve the problem. You know.
So you want help in solving your problem. Ridwan, what decisive steps do you want to see from government outside Togo, maybe the regional body, the sub-regional body?
Yes. Okay. Where we have reached now, as you say, the mediation will not work anymore. Because there have been so lot of accords that have been signed and they will never fulfill them. So how can the opposition believe in any proposal? So that is the problem now. So Togolese seems to be victimized by such a thing, that always to call them on the round table and they go on accord, and these people never do it. So if they tell you, yes, we accept the 1992 constitution, fine, let's go on the round table and talk. You go, you talk, at the end of the day, you see nothing. And to continue, they should just have a look at what happened yesterday. The crowd that went outside, use it and judge. Because the same government, when the opposition planned for demonstration, they also came out and said they're also coming to counter-demonstrate. And they came out, including the Chief Justice and the Prime Minister and other ministers. They all were poured onto the street in support of the president. So these people, what justice can they do? How can Togolese believe anymore?
But you see, when you say mediation and roundtable discussions will not work, what do we do now?
Togolese people, the larger population is asking of the exit of the government, and that's what they want. And they should also, the international mediators should see what happened in the past and see what the government has fulfilled, the accords that they signed.
But this is the case where for democracy to stand, what you want is democracy. So for that to stand as a principle, the government would have to be changed by an election. I mean, that's the principle that there is.
By election. We want a transition of power now.
Without an election?
Now, who is ruling us? Who is ruling Togo now? Not a civilian. There's a military that is ruling the country. In any democracy, can we get that? Do we have ministers in Ghana here who are military officers? No. But in Togo, military officers are ministers of the state. So that means Togo has no democracy, and we want a democracy.
But your president is a president ruling with a constitution. When you say that because military officers are ministers, you don't have a democratic government, that would be difficult.
Which constitution are they using? The constitution that was cooked by themselves within 48 hours, or the one that the people used? Now they say, yeah, they want us to come on the round table. We'll go back to the 1992 constitution. Automatically means that you have done something wrong. In the first step, why do you go for the 2002 constitution once you have 1992 constitution? So you are wrong. So if you accept it, it means that automatically you have to exit.
But you see, Ridwan, what we need is a way forward. Yeah. What we need is a way to, first of all, avoid innocents dying and to have peace and stability so Togo can grow. We all want that. This is the case where the best, most peaceful way is dialogue, isn't it?
What the opposition coalition is thinking of now is that from now, there's nobody in opposition who will do something violent. Even if they have to stay on the street and sleep there to create awareness, even if it is 100 days, they will still be there, still lying on the street for people to see. So if they have to shoot live bullets, then who is violent? There will be no violence except it comes from the government side. Never. There will be never violence except it comes from the government side.
But how do we move forward from the situation we are in without, by getting everyone, without getting everyone around the table? How do we move forward in this situation?
At the end of the day, there will be no right for the opposition coalition to refuse the sitting on the round table. But there, what they will not accept is them to continue and to sign some accords again. What they will tell you is that let's go back to the constitution. Without constitution, there will be no law. If the constitution says A, B, C, D, and you are doing something differently, then you must know that automatically you must go. So the world must tell the government that you are no more fit to rule your people, and you've been there for 50 years. The one that is ruling has never won the election. But the one that won election has never ruled. That's the situation in Togo.
Interesting. Abdul, let me take your final words. What do you expect from your leaders being the leaders of the coalition, the opposition coalition?
Not as now. Like you say, we don't need nothing. Just foreign Yasingbe, just go sign that. It can be present again. Now, you don't need about anything for him again. The negotiation or round table, that one is not our problem again. We called him for several years. He didn't respond to us. But if today the population stand up, they want the right, and then you say, now you are coming back to do something, we are just saying to step down and sign. He's supposed to respect himself. And then by some next year coming, we can call our former president. Okay. So,
right. Thank you very much, Abdul Karim. And we're going to have so much to say already. Thank you so much for joining us.